I hereby call the August 5th, 2020 meeting of the County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. And
I will call the roll.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
Okay, Margaret Clemens.
Here.
Garitas. William Hosea. Mary Beth Smarchek.
Here.
And I'm missing a name from my attendance sheet that I picked up yesterday. So we have a new member. That's right.
Vicki Sorensen.
Yes.
Yeah, Vicki Sorensen. I'm sorry.
Here.
Vicki.
That's okay.
It wasn't. I just picked this up and it wasn't on the list. Okay, we have 3 members in the quorum.
Okay. So we're missing Bernie and all right. Okay, introduction of the evidence, Larry.
Request that the following items be introduced in evidence for tonight's meeting. Monroe County Comprehensive Plan is adopted and amended. The Monroe County Zoning Ordinance is adopted and amended. Monroe County Subdivision Ordinance is adopted and amended. The rules of procedure of the Board of Zoning Appeals and the cases advertised and docketed for hearing on tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. I will do a roll call just because it's clearer for the record. The motion is to approve the introduction of evidence. The motion in favor is vote to approve. Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Mary Beth Smarchek.
Yes.
Vicki Sorensen.
Yes.
Okay, the introduction of evidence is approved.
I move that we approve tonight's agenda as advertised.
I second that.
Pardon me, Madam Chairperson. Hello?
Bernie, hey, I'm going to rename you. Thanks for joining.
I know Bernie Garitas' arrival.
I couldn't get logged onto the Zoom link.
Okay. Are we going to approve the agenda?
Yeah, this is a vote on approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. A vote in favor is vote to approve the agenda. Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Mary Beth Smarchek.
Yes.
Vicki Sorensen.
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
The agenda for tonight's meeting is approved.
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes to the December 4th and the January 8th meeting as sent to us.
I second that motion.
Okay, the motion is on to approve both the December 4th, 2019 minutes and the January 8th, 2020 minutes of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Vote in favor is a vote to approve the minutes. You do not have to have been in attendance to approve the minutes as long as you're familiar with them and that they accurately reflect your understanding of the meeting. Mary Beth Smarchek.
Yes.
Vicki Sorensen.
Staying.
Okay. Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Okay. The minutes are approved by a 3-to-1 vote with Vicki Sorensen abstaining.
Okay. No old business and no administrative business. Sorry. So new business. The first case we have before us is case number 2006-VAR-31. And
Thank you very much. Okay, so this property is located in Washington Township at 6130 North Bottom Road. This is the Monroe side yard setback variance from Chapter 804. It is a it's one lot of record of about 11.58 acres. Okay, so Jackie, do you want me to tell you next, or are you following along? Okay. Thank you. And you can go one more. So the current zoning of the property is agricultural rural reserve, and the comprehensive plan of 2015 identifies it as farm and forest. The site has a good amount of buildable area, as you can see in the top left. So this is a consideration of the petitioner rebuilt a structure that is encroaching into the side yard setback by 7 feet. The setback should be 15 feet. And on the slope map and the site map here, you can see the home. I'll point out the shed where it is, but it's closest to the road and on the north side property boundary, which would be the side. Okay, next. Okay, so there is a pictometry view of the shed in question. So again, side yard setback of 15 feet and is currently encroaching by 7 feet. So the variance was triggered by an application for a detached garage in January, which then triggered 2 other variances, the minimum lot width and buildable area, which were approved back in February. So the petitioner states that the shed was rebuilt in the same location that it existed before a tree fell on it. Had a building permit been applied for, we would have tried to correct the setback issue. So here's the petitioner's site plan. It's far from the front and 7 feet from the side setback. It's a 17 by 17.5 shed. There is a good chance that the neighbor to the north will not be affected by this, simply by the encroachment, simply because there is some slope on the petitioner's property along that boundary, which would limit the neighbor from being able to get too close to that property boundary as well. So the encroachment is kind of blocked by the slope and vegetation. So a county building inspector, Brian Arnett, did visit the site in May. And did request that 24-inch posts be set in cement at the corners of the structure. So in order to meet Indiana building code. So approval of the variance would allow the shed to remain in its current location at an encroachment of 7 feet. Staff does recommend is my recommended motion the next slide, Jackie? Okay, perfect. So staff does have to recommend denial for denying the design standard variance from the side yard setback, specifically because it, based on finding C, which means it was a self-created hardship. Had they applied for a building permit, we would have halted the permit and made them aware of the side yard setback and seen that corrected. Staff would like to recommend that if it is considered being approved, that the approval is conditional based on revising the building permit application to include the shed corner posts. It is Exhibit 3, where Mr. Arnett talks a little bit about what would need to be done to meet building code. So if considered, we'd like to at least make it a requirement that building is brought up to building code. So does anybody have any questions?
No questions for staff? Plaintiff here, and would they like to say anything?
I believe I saw Mr. Monroe on here.
Yes, ma'am, I am here.
All
Hello.
right. Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, you can proceed.
Good evening. So we had the original shed was in that same location, and the neighbor tree the neighbor's tree fell on the original shed. We are not on good speaking terms with our neighbor. And so to keep it, kind of appease them, we didn't say anything. We just built the shed back in the same place out of the materials we had, which is why it's a pallet shed. Before we went through the whole variance process, I did talk to the building department to make sure that what I built would pass their requirements. That's why he came out. I am aware I do need to put the poles in the ground then, and that's easily remedied. And we do plan to do that. The building was not built in another location due to the valley, kind of the other low-lying areas, they flood and heavy rains, and I didn't want the building down there. Primary use of the building is animal bedding and feed. And this hay storage and stuff stays in there, and we'd like to keep that dry. And it doesn't require a large or fully sided. I mean, you can see it's made out of pallets, so it's just kind of, I don't know, artistic, if we will. We like the way it looks, but hopefully the oversight of not getting a permit ahead of time, I really didn't, I guess I didn't think ahead that we already had a building there, and I just was kind of putting it back after it had been destroyed. And so I didn't know I needed to go through all this until we visited all the other variances that got us kind of down this road. And we're just trying to get back in the right side of the legal line, I suppose is a good way to put it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monroe. Does anybody have any questions for the petitioner? Bernie, Margaret, you got any questions for the petitioner?
I don't. Excuse me.
I do not.
Hi, Vicki?
I do not.
Okay. I gotta go. So if this petition was denied, question for staff, that means that they would have to tear down the shed, is that correct?
Unfortunately, yes. I would have liked to have been able to support the petition, but as staff, I'm supposed to represent the ordinance, and I just couldn't find the way.
Wouldn't
But
that be
I mean-
considered an economic and environmental waste?
Yes, it could.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of the petition?
Yes.
Can I speak?
Yes.
I'm the wife.
Okay, and state your name, please.
I'm Jessica Monroe.
Jessica, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jessica.
So I just wanted to say that the shed was made from pallets from an MCCSE school. I work at Templeton Elementary, and we recently, a couple of years ago, installed solar panels at our school, and all of the pallets had to be gone out of the gym. I don't know if they were going in the trash or where they were going. So my principal at the time, my custodian, asked if we wanted them. And since they were all a similar size, because they were all from the same project, it was just a good reuse of material. So I just wanted you guys to know, like, we really did take these from a project that could have been wasteful and reuse them.
Yes, I actually noticed that, and that's very nice. Very good way to do that and avoid environmental waste. Any questions for Mrs. Monroe? Anyone else here wish to speak on behalf of the petition? Anyone else here would like to speak against the petition? None, I assume?
I'm not seeing any, Mary Beth.
Okay, thank you. It's hard for me to tell. Okay, anybody ready to make a motion for us?
Yeah, I can. I need to go back downstairs and get my agenda. All right, pardon me for that delay. Okay, in the matter of case number 2006-VAR-31, design standards variance, chapter 1804, the side yard setback at 6130 North Bottom Road. I move that we approve the variance based on the findings and with the condition that a revised building permit application to include the shed corner posts, parentheses, existing or additional, in parentheses, be set in the cement at about a depth of 24 inches minimum to meet the Indiana building code.
I second that motion.
Okay, I will call the roll. The vote is on petition number 2006-VR-31, Monroe side yard setback variance from chapter 804. A vote in favor is a vote to approve the development standards variance from the side yard requirements. Mary Beth Marchek,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Barbara Clemens,
Yes.
Vicki Sorensen.
Yes.
Okay, the variance is approved with the conditions therein by a 4-0 vote.
Hey, Larry, one comment.
Yes.
One comment. I'd like to add that I fully understand Ann's and staff's recommendation on this. That the packet was the petition was done very well, and just wanted to add that comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Good night.
Okay, next case, number 2006-VAR-33. Ann?
All right, so this is the Carico use variance from chapter 802. Next slide, please. So this property is located in Benton North Township at 7727 North Tunnel Road. It is a 0.27 acre lot. So the petition site is currently zoned suburban residential, which is one of the original 1996 zones that was designed kind of for the Lake Lemon area. The comprehensive plan does identify it as being rural residential. So the petition site is partially located in FEMA floodplain and does have quite a bit of steep slopes on the east side near North Tunnel Road. So a bit of background, the petitioner is seeking to use this residential property as a short-term rental to assist with property taxes, which you can read about in Exhibit 1, which is the submitted petitioner letter. So short-term rentals are defined as a rental that's under 30 days by Chapter 801. So the use is defined in Chapter 802 as a tourist home or cabin and is not permitted in the SR zone. So if this use variance is granted, the petition site would not meet all of the tourist home cabin condition 48 criteria. So in Chapter 802, under the use table, many uses have additional criteria that they have to meet. So this one was number 48. You can go next. Thank you very much. So this is a site plan from their 2018 building permit that I just kind of illustrated. So the blue area is the FEMA on the west side that goes towards the lake. The kind of darker shaded area is the newest house. The pink is North Tunnel Road. The orange highlight is the parking area, and the existing home that is now decommissioned is can be seen partially in the FEMA floodplain area. So, well, we'll talk about this in a minute. Can you do next slide, please? So the condition 48 criteria, this slide contains the first few that that we thought that it might be difficult for the petitioner to be able to meet, even if the use variance was approved. So condition A, the site is grandfathered, but B and D relate to criteria that would normally, only apply on these larger lots, because this use is only actually, it's only permitted in the agricultural, rural reserve, conservation, residential, and forest reserve zones. So they're a little bit more appropriate, like being 200 feet from an adjoining principal use structure. That's criteria B. That's a little bit more intuitive versus in the SR zone, there's a minimum lot site of 1 acre, which would be very difficult to meet that. Number D is talking about parking. So there's a little staff note, just basically that the parking is a very small area, and that the parking would only be on paved or gravel driveways that would be allowed, but the street and the driveway kind of are very, very close together. So if we can do next slide, these next 4 criteria are ones that I didn't necessarily see any problem with, that they probably would be able to meet. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so these are some pictometry photos trying to, unfortunately, our most recent, these were the best photos, and it's so wooded in the area, it's kind of hard to see the slope of North Tunnel Road here, but at least a couple different angles to kind of see. So the petitioner wanted to remodel the original single-family residence, but because it was located within FEMA floodplain, they were unable to do that. So they chose to decommission the building and rebuild a single-family residence, which is the large structure that we see in the lot now. Next slide, please. So here are a few more photos. I have a dog trying to lay with me right now. Okay. So this is the front of the house. The top left photo you can see is the hill coming down from of North Tunnel Drive. So you can kind of see how the front of the home and the parking area is very close to North Tunnel Road. So North Tunnel Road is a single lane gravel private road. There is some parking to the side where you can see there's a carport on the bottom right photo. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just a panorama from down at the lakeside, looking up towards the home. The small original single-family residence can be seen. It did flood regularly. The bottom left photo is kind of looking up towards the parking area. Okay. So we received, I believe the count is now 9 letters of remonstrance, which are included as Exhibit 3. There were an additional letter and some photographs that were submitted earlier to date to the Board of Zoning Appeals committee members in the reminder email, because they just came in a little bit too late. But so to summarize, some of the concerns that the remonstrators had were safety, that the road is 1 lane and narrow and steep and does have blind turns, that the road was in need of repair, that the road maintenance is funded by residents, that drivers unfamiliar with the area could endanger residents, that residents and children walk to Riddle Point Park. Other concerns were about water. The cove is narrow and shallow and could show difficulty of maybe novice boaters navigating it, that the docks and the boats are close together, and that there were multiple concerns regarding noise amplification across the cove. Some people had negative past experiences with unpermitted short-term rentals in the area. And then some people expressed, at least one person said that they thought the site was fairly large and compatible for large groups, which concerned them. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So these are a few pictures of the remonstrators. These are some of the photos that the remonstrators submitted that I just wanted to include a few. Several people took, time to try to demonstrate how narrow North Tunnel Road is. The bottom photos of the vehicle in a creek I received this Monday, that they had said that it was somebody that was unfamiliar with the road and that they hadn't seen this happen. Somebody go too fast and go off the road in 20 some years. So 2 different people sent me photos of this vehicle in the creek. And next slide, please. Thank you. So for use variance, there are 5 criteria that has to be considered in order to consider approval. So I was just going to kind of go over what each of the points and then point out a few of my key findings of fact. I'm not going to read all of my findings of fact for each one, just the ones that I feel are important to verbally note here. So the first standard is that the approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. So mainly it's that the property derives access from North Tunnel Road, a single lane road, which is approximately 12 feet in width. If the use variance is approved, the Monroe County Planning Department would review a site plan, but the Highway Department would not be involved with the review because this is a private drive. Criteria B is the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will be affected in a substantially adverse manner. So, of course, property value is difficult to determine, but the neighboring uses on North Tunnel Road are all residential in nature. So for this finding, it's very, very standard that staff has to say that it may or may not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Finding C is that the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. So essentially, you have to demonstrate that this property cannot be it cannot be used reasonably with any other of the approved uses for this zone already. It already is a residential site. It's the intent of the zone, so it has a single family dwelling unit and 2 accessory structures. There are many permitted uses that could be explored here. The tourist home or cabin is not a permitted use within this zone. There's no substantial evidence that the property cannot be utilized under one of the permitted uses listed in the SR zone. It is permitted for a long-term rental, which is really just we see as a residential use, which is just a rental over 30 days. And that's just single family use. Criteria D is that the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. The tourist home cabin is not permitted in the zone. The petitioner could file for a rezone. Tourist homes are permitted in other zones, so they technically could apply for a rezone. So really the strict application of the zoning ordinance does not constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property. And then the last criteria, E, is that it does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan does designate this site as rural residential. The neighboring properties are also recommended to be rural residential. There are evident environmental constraints because of the property being in FEMA floodplain. So the proposed land use, the use variance is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan's designation. So one of the purposes of the SR district is to discourage the development of non-residential uses, and the proposed use of a tourist home or cabin is considered a business and personal services, not a residential use. So the approval of the variance would interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. So staff recommends denial of the use variance for tourist home or cabin. It's chapter 802 of the Monroe County zoning ordinance based on the findings of fact, specifically the inability to establish favorable findings for all 5 of the required criteria of a use variance.
Any questions for staff? Thank you, Ann.
No, I want to hear the petitioner, of course, but I think that I just want to comment that going through the condition 48 for conditional use, even though that doesn't apply to this scenario, since that condition is not listed as being appropriate for suburban residential, that is very helpful. And after I hear the petition, I'll probably get into that just a hair more, but just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, is the petitioner here? Do we know if the petitioner?
Yes, he is. Let me
Okay.
help him unmute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. I
Did
don't
you
know
state
a
your
lot
name
about.
for us, sir?
Sorry. My name's David Carrico.
Do you swear to tell, please raise your right hand?
Yes, sure.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you can proceed, sir.
Okay. This is the first time I ever used this Zoom thing, and I'm a little bit nervous. So
You're doing fine.
I have some notes here. I just wanted to note and go through, if that's okay. In 1999, when we purchased our Lake Lemon property, the bank required I obtain a statement from a surveyor that said the house did not flood. The statement, obviously, the statement simply stated that the statement I got from a surveyor said that the lake itself had flood control, and obviously because it has a spillway, and therefore the house itself wouldn't flood. Well, that obviously was completely wrong. It's flooded numerous times, and as I understand, the rule for a variance may be granted if there's a demonstrated hardship. And I am aware of a recent case, the Lake Lemon property near the porthole received a variance due to some kind of demonstrated hardship, and I don't know which one, I don't know what that was because I can't read the minutes. There was no minutes to read. I think I have a very clear and greater hardship simply due to the fact that climate change has rendered the house I bought, completely uninhabitable. Interestingly enough, the Monroe County assessor still considers it a livable house. And I mean, it's taxed as a house rather than a storage building that it is at this point. I've appealed that assessment, and I don't hold out hope. Given that our original lake home could never be improved, we had to stretch financially to build another house on the property. I worked on the house myself for over 2 years. I did the plumbing, I did the electrical, the painting, the trim work, installed the kitchen and the bathrooms. Now, since I have a new house, the taxes are very high, and they say next year they're going to be, almost $1,000 a month. So I'm asking for the variance in order to make it financially possible for us to keep our lake property. I only plan to rent the house on a part-time basis, since my family and I, we want to use it. We want to enjoy the house. I didn't build it to simply rent it. I only want to rent it mostly in the fall and winter and early spring, and to keep it for our use during the summer when most people are present. And in that way, in this way, any impact on the road and surrounding neighbors would be minimized. Also, would in the process promote local businesses such as the porthole and the Butler Winery and the local marina. And I just want to say this also, since we have owned our property, we have noticed countless Airbnb rentals on the lake. All you have to do is look on the Airbnb website. From what I can determine, most have been illegal. There are several near the porthole that have never applied for a variance and continue operating untouched, it appears to me. the Airbnb rentals closest to our property, which there were two actually, got away with it for years. The one rental was shut down, was particularly egregious with multiple code violations. That owner appeared to me to be quite callous to all the effects of his renters upon the surrounding neighbors. I have no intention of replicating that situation, and I don't have any intention whatsoever to create that kind of nuisance for the neighborhood. I plan to rent the house to no more than 6 persons, and I want to focus on families and young professionals, and will not rent to large groups as college students, as the guy in our neighborhood did when he was going strong. And in the future, my short-term, if in the future, the short-term rental becomes a constant nuisance to the neighbors, I will discontinue renting it. I simply don't want to adversely impact the enjoyment of their enjoyment of the lake. They're all good people and they deserve that respect. And I don't want to impact them at all that way. That's not my intention whatsoever. I think I can manage this and have a cohabitable kinds of situation for the lake. Again, I think it should be noted that I have chosen to be entirely above board and apply for a variance. I haven't done this in a deceptive way and started things. And that's not true of a lot of people there at the lake, quite honestly. If we don't get the variance, I'll do my best to keep my property, but I'm not hopeful. I'm just asking the board to be fair and consistent when considering my case, especially in comparison to the recently approved variance given on the lake earlier this summer. I also just want to make a real quick comment about the road and the situation there. My property is about a quarter mile in on the gravel part of Tunnel Road, and the more problematic parts of the road are beyond my property, and the ones that have had the issues, even with that picture where the Jeep was in the creek there. That's a good ways from my property. So I don't anticipate the amount of problems with the road and traffic issues, especially if I do it a little bit more in the off season, which I plan to do, because like I said, I want to use the house for our purposes. So I'll be glad to open, to be open for any questions, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your fair consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for the petitioner?
I have a question. Is this your permanent home or just a weekend getaway home?
Right now, it's a weekend getaway home. We've had the property. It was a summer house. We had it for 20 years. And like I said in my letter, when I retired, I decided I was going to rehabilitate the old house and make it into something decent. Well, that proved not to be the case. So that I spent my time building this new place. But so we may very well move into the house one day, but that's not right now. My wife's still working and doesn't want to drive and all that.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else have questions for the petitioner?
Yeah, a couple questions, at least one. Explain to me the road fund.
I'm sorry?
That Mr. Eberly and Mr. Sonneborn in their letters both mentioned the road fund. I want you to explain the road fund.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from your perspective.
Everybody who lives on that road kicks in money. There's 2 lots of money, by the way. Actually, my house and all the houses that are, I don't know if they call it south, or actually it goes out to the main road. We have one fund, and then the rest of them, from my house onward up the hill, has another fund, and they maintain that section of that road.
So is that a deed commitment that a certain amount per year, or excuse me?
I don't think it is.
Is that
Sorry.
Let me finish here just so I can make sure I get my question out properly. Thank you. Is that an annual contribution? Is it you contribute when you feel like it? Is it based on the frontage? How is that constructed? The road fund.
Well, when we bought that, it was in existence when we bought in '99, and all I was told back then it was like $50 a year, and you just gave the money to a guy down the street, and he handled getting gravel hauled in and things like that. And so I don't know about the other section of road if it's different for them, to be honest. But our section, I think it's still $50, but it may have gone up. When we have special, projects, they have to get more money, so we get more money. And it's voluntary, I guess. I think that's the case. I don't know. There's no deed restriction that I know of.
Okay. So have you looked at the prospect of a rezone, so you could rezone this to something that the tourist home was at least allowed in as a conditional use?
To be honest with you, I haven't. I'm not real skilled in all this. That sounds like a bigger deal to me, but I have to say I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how possible that would be.
Right, and I mean, I'm not swayed personally. I'm not necessarily swayed by even the road or some of the arguments made by adjoiners. Lake Lemon is evolving. It's evolving into what people see that will fit for the end user sometimes, right? And that end user may be a family, or it may be a weekend group, as you suggest. My concern is that even if you went through a rezone, and this is speculation, but even if you went through a rezone, some of the site conditions might be difficult for you to meet, even under the conditional use criteria. And the granting of that petition that you referred to earlier, that has nothing to do with this one. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. So that's all I've got for now.
Anyone else have any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, would anyone else like to speak on behalf of the petition? Seeing any, Jackie?
No, I have a feeling you might get some remonstrators, so we'll just have to. call the
Okay,
roll
let's
on
go
that.
to it. All right. Would anybody else would like to speak against the petition? Jackie?
I'm not seeing anyone. Check the chat. I don't see anyone in the chat or unmuting themselves. If anyone wants to speak, you can either raise your hand or put something in the chat and we'll call on you, or just unmute.
How do you unmute? Well, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Mike Sonneborn.
Mike, can you raise your hand?
I will.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed, sir.
Okay. First of all, I have no problem with David and his family continuing to use this home as they have for 20 years as a weekend getaway, I assume from their townhome. And that's how we use our lake home. And I'd say about half of the the houses on our road are used on weekends. There are more full-time residents here than there were in the past. I will speak on two issues. Number one, this road is maintained by basically voluntarily contributions, which total about $3,000 a year to maintain a 3/4 mile gravel road. David mentioned there are two funds, and there are. Our fund at one end of the road is now dealing with a $15,000 estimate for 3 improvements. One of those improvements includes a 24-inch drainage pipe going underneath the road right in front of this subject property. The other thing I'd like to address is that with our $3,000 fee and this gravel road on a slippery northern slope that doesn't get sun, we don't plow. The county doesn't plow. The county ends at Riddle Point. The road is not plowed down on our end. It is not salted. I've seen cars slide off. I'm not sure how viable off-season rental, especially winter rental, is here. I've got no problem with the Caricos continuing to use that house, and it's a nice house that David's built, and I look forward to seeing him here as a weekend neighbor. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak against the petition?
I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay. I guess we're ready for a motion.
I'll make one. In the case number 2006-VAR-33, the request is to have a use variance to Chapter 802, which would allow a tourist home or cabin at 7727 North Tunnel Road. And I recommend or make a motion that we deny the use variance, the tourist home or cabin, due to the findings of fact.
Does anybody want to second that motion?
I second.
Okay, call the roll, please, Larry.
The vote is on petition number 2006-VR-33 to vote use variance from Chapter 802. A vote in favor is a vote to deny the use variance based upon the findings of fact. Vicki Sorensen,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Mary Beth Kamarchak. I'm sorry, I got lost, Sarah.
Yes.
The variance is denied by a 4-0 vote.
Thank you, sir. You have a good evening.
Thanks.
Okay. Next case is case number 2006-VAR-35. Drew?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So this is the Hodge rear yard setback variance from Chapter 804. It's at 7964 North Steinsville Road. Next slide, please. So we'll start off with some summary. The request is for one design standards variance from Chapter 804 for the purpose of building a 576 square foot detached garage located approximately 20 feet from the rear yard property line. Property received variance approval for minimum lot size and minimum lot width in May 2019. That the Board of Zoning Appeals approved both of those variances at that time. And the rear yard setback for residential and residential accessory structures in the Ag-R zone is 35 feet. So the location of this proposed detached garage would result in an encroachment of 15 feet into that rear yard setback. So here we have the location map. Like I said, it's located at 7964 North Steinsville Road, in Blossom Township. The current zoning is agricultural rural reserve. There's some suburban residential to the south. The comprehensive plan has it designated as rural residential. Here we have some site conditions. The site is approximately 0.61 acres and 120 feet wide at the building line. It contains a home that has been recently added onto. I don't believe that this image here in the site conditions map reflects that new structure due to these aerial images are 2016, I believe. So it's a little bit larger now from the variance approvals. The site utilizes a septic system and will not be impacted by the location of the proposed detached garage. There are no karst features on the lot, and there's no FEMA floodplain located on the property either. Also, the slope of the property is fairly flat. Now we have some aerial photography of the petition site. The top left photograph does show the newer structure with the addition that was received variance approvals. And the bottom right shows the older structure, but just a different angle of the property in general. Some more photographs here. If you'll notice that this is the older structure. And if the top left photograph, the detached garage will be placed in the left of the existing structure. So here we have the petitioner's letter and also the petitioner's submitted site plan that shows the location, proposed location of the detached garage. The measurements are a little bit different here based on the property lines being not completely accurately drawn on Elevate. We'll make sure if this variance does get approved that we get the correct measurements and get the correct location staked out. Okay, so overall, planning staff recommends approval of the design standards variance, chapter 804 for the rear yard setback based on the findings of fact. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions for staff? Is the petitioner here?
Yes,
Hi, would you like to speak?
I don't have anything to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of the petition? Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak against the petition? Seeing and hearing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve case number 2006-VAR-35, which is the design standards variance to chapter 804 regarding the rear yard setback based on the findings and fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and Drainage Engineer reports.
Second.
Ready to call roll for us, Larry?
Okay, the vote is on petition number 2006-VRS35, Hodge rear yard setback variance from chapter 804. A vote to approve the variance is a vote, affirmative vote is a vote to approve the variance with the conditions set forth in the report. Okay, Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Bertie Garitas,
Yes.
Mary Beth Smarchek,
Yes.
and Vicky Sorensen.
Yes.
The variance is approved by a 4-0 vote.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
Thank you.
Next up, we have case number 2006-VAR-36. Drew?
All right, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the Jackson front yard setback variance from chapter 833. It's located at 3610 West Fullerton Pike. So it looks like the summary page didn't get saved or it got clicked over. I'm not sure, Jackie. If it's not there, okay, that's fine. Overall, the purpose of this petition is to provide for a building permit to build a detached garage, a 864 square foot detached garage. The front yard setback for the property in the single dwelling residential zoning district is 25 feet from right of way. And this lot is a corner lot. It's on South Sharon Drive and West Fullerton Pike. South Sharon Drive has a 25-foot setback, being a local road, and it is also in a platted subdivision that also indicates a 25-foot building setback from right of way as well. The location of the proposed detached garage is located approximately 25 feet from the edge of pavement, which actually results in an encroachment of approximately 19 feet into that required 25-foot setback. Go ahead, next slide, please. Okay, so it's currently zoned the RS 3.5. The comprehensive plan has it designated as Makua suburban residential. Here we have some site conditions and slope map. The site is predominantly flat with frontage to both West Fullerton Pike, a minor arterial roadway, and frontage as well to South Sharon Drive, which is a local road. FEMA floodplain does not exist on the property. There are no known karst features, and the site drains south and southeast. Here we have some aerial pictometry of the petition site. The top left photograph, you'll see the utilities shed or smaller structure. The proposed site will be placed to the right of that or to the east. You'll notice that it would look like the property line would cut right through that location. But again, Elevate and pictometry don't completely accurately draw these lines for us here. We'll see a petitioner's site plan here in a minute to show exactly where the proposed location of the detached garage will be. So we'll just keep going through these pictometry photos of just the site here. Okay. Here is the letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals by the petitioner stating their intent to build the detached garage and their acknowledgement of the setback requirement from Sharon Drive. And here we have the petitioner's submitted site plan. Here we have the proposed garage, the 24 by 36. You'll notice that they have the measurements labeled out here from the edge of pavement. So we measure the front yard setback from South Sharon Drive from the right of way, and that's 25 feet. So that will cause an encroachment if the structure is placed here. The petitioner did state that part of the reason why they selected this location is due to a water line that services their home. They do not want to build the proposed detached garage over that water line. So they've elected to put it here, which involves getting into that front yard setback of South Sharon Drive. Here we have the Garden Acres plat. The left image is just the plat itself, and the right image is a zoomed in image of the lot number 23 that we're speaking on. You'll notice that it also has a 25-foot building front setback from South Sharon Drive as well. So overall, staff recommends approval of the design standards variance, chapter 833 for the front yard setback based on the findings of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and Drainage Engineer reports. I will now take any questions.
Any questions for Drew?
I have a question, Drew. Can you tell me the difference between the chapter 804 and the chapter 833?
Sure. So chapter 833 is the zoning ordinance that we administer for the former Bloomington fringe zones. They were areas of the county that Bloomington had former jurisdiction over that the county now has jurisdiction over. So we have to administer the zoning ordinance that was in place when that jurisdiction change occurred.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Drew?
Yeah, I've got one. Drew, do you know, is that the water line that we're referring to? Is that is that a residential service, or is that water line for this home, or is it a service? Is it a municipal feeder line or a trunk line?
So it is a residential service line. Jackie, if you go back to the site conditions map. So on the site conditions map, you'll notice the water pipeline in blue in the top left photograph. That water line is a service line to multiple residences. So their own service line at this address comes off that line, moving south to connect to the home.
Okay, hang on. What page are you on, Drew? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, so on the in the packet, I'm on page. Sorry, I have my own report pulled up and not the packets report.
It's page 69. I think it's page 69.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
59. Is that the one numbered on the bottom of the page, Margaret?
Yes.
Okay, hang on just a second. Okay, I see it. Yeah.
So yeah, so their own service line comes off of that blue dotted line and runs south to the existing home.
All right, excuse me just a second. This my sheets end at 65. What's the number at the bottom of the page?
One second.
I think it's also 69.
Okay. Well,
You
keep
just
going.
have to enlarge the photo because the blue line is a little faint.
Right. Well, my last page on this petition is 65. That's why I'm asking. Okay, keep going. That's fine.
Okay, any further questions for Drew? Okay, seeing none, is the petitioner here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Jackson. Would you state your name, please?
William D. Jackson.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may continue.
Well, I don't have much to say other than I appreciate your time and I appreciate the work Drew has put into this. This is my first time doing any of this with the Zoom or the trying to get a building permit or any of it. So I appreciate all the work Drew's put into this.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions for the petitioner? I don't see any, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of the petition?
I'm not seeing anyone, Mary Beth.
Anyone here wants to speak against the petition? Don't see any. Would somebody like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion in case number 2006-VAR-36, which is a request for a design standards variance to chapter 833 for a front yard setback based on practical difficulties and findings of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and Drainage Engineer reports.
Okay. I second that motion.
Okay, the vote is on petition number 2006-ER-36, Jackson front yard setback variance from chapter 833. Vote in favor is a vote to approve the variance, subject to the findings of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and Drainage Engineer's report. Again, a vote in favor is a vote to approve the variance based upon the findings of fact. Bernie Garitas?
Yes.
Mary Beth Smarchek?
Yes.
Vicki Sorensen?
Yes.
and Margaret Clements.
Yes.
The variance is approved by a 4-0 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. You have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, folks, very much.
Okay, next petition. Case number 2006-VAR-37. Drew.
All right, this is the Gregory buildable area variance from chapter 804. It's located at 490 East Fawn Ridge Trail. Okay, so the request here is one design standards variance, chapter 804. The purpose is to build a 6,025 square foot single family residence that will be partially located in non-buildable area, i.e. the slopes greater than 15%. The property received variance approval for a residential storage structure size limit requirement in April of 2019, which allowed the construction of a 2,184 square foot metal storage building, which is now present on the site. The petitioner proposes to construct now a single family residence with a walkout basement type design that will encroach into 15% slopes. If approved, the petitioner is required to meet improvement location permit requirements, including setbacks and all other design standards of chapter 804. If denied, the petitioner must relocate or reduce the footprint of their proposed single family residence in order to meet the buildable area requirement. So here we have the location map. Again, it's located at 490 East Fawn Ridge Trail. It's in Washington Township. The current zoning is agricultural rural reserve. The comprehensive plan has it designated as rural residential. Site conditions and slope. So site conditions on the property, it's about 5.03 acres and exhibits access off of East Fawn Ridge Trail, which is a local road. The parcel contains an existing 2,184 square foot metal storage structure and 120 square foot utility shed. To the right, you'll see the buildable area slope map, and the proposed single family residence is approximately located where this black polygon has been drawn. So you'll notice that a portion of that area extends into the 15% and greater slopes. Here we have some site photographs. This is coming from East Fawn Ridge Trail. So you see 490 here, and you can see the metal storage structure in the background. Here's the driveway cut. And then the driveway goes along to a second driveway that goes directly in onto the petitioner's property. This paved driveway also services, or easement services, another property that is off the picture here. So here's the driveway. It goes up to this metal storage structure that received variance approval in April of last year. To the right of this storage structure is the proposed location of the single family residence. So these photographs are looking to that area. You can kind of see some stakes here of the proposed structure's location, as well as starting to see how the slopes come down in this area where the proposed location is. More photographs of the slopes in this area. And here we have some aerial pictometry of the petition site. Obviously, you can see the metal storage structure here in the middle, and then there's a small utility shed to the southwest, and then the proposed location of the single family residence will be to the southeast, southeast of the existing storage structure. Here we have the petitioner's letter. You can find this in your packet. Here we have the petitioner's submitted site plan with measurements of the proposed location of the single family residence. It's the bottom right polygon. Here we have some sample images of the proposed structure. And finally, here we have a few letters of support from neighbors. We had several neighbors send us these letters as support for Mr. Gregory's buildable area variance. So I wanted to include those here. Overall, staff recommends denial of the design standards variance, chapter 804 for buildable area based on the findings of fact, primarily due to the practical difficulties requirement of the variance requirements, solely because the petitioner could elect to relocate the position of the structure or reduce its size to not be in the buildable area. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Drew?
Yeah, I've got a quick one. Drew, has the petitioner looked at what a change in footprint size would look like to keep out of the 15% in that location?
I'm not completely sure if they've looked too much into that. I do know that they were planning on doing the walkout basement type design.
Right.
So I think that they wanted to keep that type of design. And I also spoke with the petitioner's contractor. He was under the impression that some of those slopes may not be depicted as accurately as depicted on the slope map. But after staff site visits and other staff review, staff decided that the variance would still be required, even though the contractor said that the slopes may be different.
Okay, thanks, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions for staff? Thank you, Drew. Is this petitioner here, please?
This is Mike Carmen. I'm representing the petitioner, and the petitioners, Charles and Marilyn Gregory, are online. Their screen name will show up as Marilyn, I believe it is. So Mr. Gregory, Charles is going to speak first, and I'll have some additional comments to make when he's completed. Okay, if we can go to Charles then.
Okay, Mr. Gregory?
Yeah.
Mr. Gregory, can you state your name?
Charles Gregory.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Hello, I am Charles Gregory, and I'm here with my wife, Marilyn Gregory. I've enlisted Mike Carmen as legal counsel due to the seriousness and long-term effects this decision will have on my family. As mentioned, I was here a year and a quarter ago on April of 2019 for a variance, and thankfully received that variance for my storage building. At that time, I told the board that we plan to build a house within the next 2 years, and so here we are. We have owned this property since 2004 with the desire for a house with a walkout basement and a deck looking out over the woods. We've had this house plan designed specifically for our family's needs. We've spent months working with the planner and have budged things around to where this is the I guess we're old enough that we know what we want and what we need, and this is it. We are asking for a small variance. The house footprint is mostly and this is approximate, but approximately at a 12% grade for 90% of the house. There is right, and it is right at 15% grade is in the northeast corner of the house. You know, we've moved this, and we've moved the house as far forward as we can without being obtrusive, with the existing driveway in place. And if we're going to, I mean, I guess, and that will also lead to the least amount of dirt being removed in order to give us the walkout. If we move this any further forward on our property, we're going to be basically removing or disturbing more earth in order to get our basement, our walkout. So I guess this, you know, at this point, I had promised my wife, my wife's going to be retiring here in 1.5 years, and I promised her that I'd have a house ready to go by the time she retired. So this is my project moving towards that. And this is the house we're going to have, and this is the decision here is going to decide where that house is. So with that, I'd like to allow my wife, Marilyn, to speak.
You're muted.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, and we appreciate the work that Drew did. We've owned this property since 2004, and those woods, that view is what we have wanted for such a long time. And it seems very arbitrary that we're just 5 years late to the party. If this slope was created, issue was done in 2015. It's a small variance we're seeking. We have an expert builder and contract for the concrete, and we're just hoping you can see your way to give us a pass. Okay.
Any questions for the petitioners? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone here that?
Well, this is Mike Carmen. I may speak for petitioners now.
Okay.
All right, thank you. You know, the standard you're confronting is for the design standards variance is not the same as use variance. You had that a little bit earlier.
Sorry, Mary Beth, do you want to swear Mike Carmen in real fast?
He's a lawyer. I don't have to swear him in.
Oh, okay. Go for it, Mike.
Okay. But the staff, you know, Drew's remarks refer to practical difficulties, and that is the standard. You know, item C, the third of the 3 criteria, the findings the board would have to make, is generally the make-break point on these design standards variants, almost always. And Drew commented on no practical difficulties. Unfortunately, be careful when you read the staff report, because it unfortunately uses the word hardship, and that is not the right legal standard. That was the use variance you had earlier. That does not apply to design standards, even though the staff finding says there's no hardship, and you need to disregard that, because that goes down the wrong path. But talking about the practical difficulties, I'm going to try and do a share screen here. Jackie or Ann, who's ever running the show, I think you have to, I can do the share screen, but I think you have to then go to it so I can.
Brady, can you help Mike Carmen? Okay, thank you.
So let me get out of here and I'll get to the screen. Should this be quickly? Thought I had it set up and ready to go. Here we go. And I guess Bernie and Margaret are not going to be able to see this. I will give you some page references to get something close as the photograph, but this is an aerial photograph. And Bernie, Margaret, page 113 in the staff report or the packet would have a similar photograph. It's just harder to see. This is enlarged, and I thought a little bit easier to see. But in this, you can see the petitioner's parcel is the one at the top, about in the center of the page. You can see the existing accessory building. There's a red polygon down there that tried to match up with what Drew had drawn in as the black one that he showed you earlier. You can see the property to the south, they've drawn red squares around the structures on the three properties to the south, the southwest, and to the west of this property. All of those have much more of their structures built into the 15-degree slope, much more severe slopes than this, but they were all built at an earlier time. Marilyn made the comment about 5 years late to the party. They bought this in 2004. These other properties, they were built before the slope rule came into effect. It's not Lake Monroe watershed. It's not Lake Griffey watershed. But there is ravines around this and that whole area out there. But nobody's going to go back to these three owners, those other properties, and say, your house is non-conforming now, current standards. You need to tear it down. That's never going to happen, nor should it. But because they've made an investment in the property, they built the homes under the rules that apply. When Marilyn and Charles bought this lot in 2004, they made the same investment. Maybe not the dollars that the structure would involve, but they did the same thing. They invested in the property, and there are rules that apply to what they would ultimately be able to do in building the house. And the problem is those rules have changed on them. And I think that creates a practical difficulty. It would allow you to approve this variance. It's a fairly, every encroachment in the slope area is of concern. We understand that. And that's why Margaret was trying to make reference to the expertise of both concrete and the general contractor to deal with that. I mean, adequate precautions certainly can be taken and should be, and always should be taken with regard to erosion control, stabilization of the site, both during construction and even afterwards. But those are all answers. But they've already made their investment in this property, and now they find themselves confronted with a tough decision. One of Drew's comments was that they could just relocate it on the site. It kind of got passed over a little bit quickly, but the one diagram that the map that Drew showed you, where he showed the black polygon of the home site, he showed you there was a second one on that site, and that's the proposed Presby system. Randy Raines, health department, has already been out. He's already looked at the property, and that was his recommended as the best site for the Presby system. So what they don't want to do is move the house and interfere with the septic site that would be there, and that limits their ability to move to some degree, actually quite a bit. Moving at other places are all less preferred. They all either move it closer to the neighbors, moves it into the view of the neighbors, moves it to where their view is now looking down over a road as opposed to the natural view, which is what they're trying to maintain. There is no better site than this in many respects. So then we're still stuck then but this site has a slope. Why don't you reduce the size of it? That's the equivalent of asking the other homeowners to tear the homes down that are on slopes and to get rid of them. It's, they have, as Charles referred to, both their desires and their needs, and they've planned accordingly. And, it's going to be they invested this property 16 years ago with the view that they would eventually be able to be in a position where they could build their home. I hate to use the cliche dream home, but that's what most people, when they get to our age, I'm put myself in the same age group as Charles LeMay, when you get to our age and you're building a home, it's always that last home and that home that you've planned for, you're finally in a position able to do it. And it's a tough request to say, scrap your plans and change them, because rules have changed on you during these 16 years that you've owned this property getting to this point. So I would suggest that there is practical difficulties. It's not a hardship, but that's not the standard. It is a practical difficulty, which does not mean impossible. It means that there are issues involved with trying to use the property in a reasonable manner as intended and be able to meet strict compliance with the zoning ordinance. We're talking a relatively modest increase into the slope area that can be properly and safely engineered, whilst the requirement anyway of any good contractor and home developer will do erosion control, certainly a condition of approval that made an erosion control plan an explicit issue, and including stabilization that stays in place through stabilization of the soils and the surface through later vegetation. Those are easy conditions to add to it, and those can be monitored and checked on. So would ask your support in granting this variance, and would ask you do find that under the circumstances that there are practical difficulties and approve the variance. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Carmen?
I've got a question for Mr. Carmen or Mr. and Mrs. Gregory. This is Bernie, excuse me. Mike, Mr. Carmen, would you show the location of where, or pardon me, not show, would you describe maybe on the diagram called the site plan, approximately where the Presby system is proposed?
Sure. Bernie, if you go southwest from the corner of the existing accessory building garage, or whatever you want to call it there, southwest from that, probably 50 feet would be a corner of the rectangle that would be the Presby area. So it's southwest of that structure, west to southwest of it, running a little northeasterly, southwesterly diagonal. So the rectangle.
Okay, so that's the other rectangular on the other
Yes.
side of the driveway.
Right.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was it or not. Okay. And then as a part of the building permit plan, Drew, or pardon me, the building permit application, excuse me, and the improvement location permit is what's required of the erosion control plan?
For
What
a
does staff-
for a standard ILP permit?
Yeah, for whenever the Gregory's would come and make application for their construction, what will they have to provide by way of an erosion control plan?
Bernie, this is Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Our erosion control ordinance does not apply to individual lots unless they disturb more than 1 acre.
Okay.
So it might be a condition that you have that there be an erosion control plan approved by the stormwater department. That would be my suggestion if that's a concern.
Well, that's kind of, I'll just put it out there. Well, we can end with the petitioner if he or she or his representative is done. I don't want to get into a staff discussion in the middle of their time.
Bernie, on each ILP that the planning department issues, we do encourage them to show us the location of silk fence and stabilize and seed the area after a certain number of days. So we do have that included in the ILP for each person that they could see.
Okay. Thanks, Jackie.
Does that include replanting native vegetation?
It's typically just seed and straw just to stabilize the soils. It doesn't include landscape plan, but.
Yeah.
Is it possible to speak?
Would the petitioner, anybody else speak on behalf of the petition?
Yes. I was just going to mention, we have about 200 feet of silt fence installed below the build site. And our contract, who we have contracted for the basement, has included 35 feet of retaining wall in his estimate and what we've agreed to. And I've given him the green light. If we get in there and he needs more retaining wall, then
I'll do it.
We'll do what's needed.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak against this petition? Seeing none. I'll entertain a motion.
Do that.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's fine. I just remember Mr. and Mrs. I think just Mr. Gregory. I don't know if Mrs. Gregory spoke at the meeting before.
No,
I
I was
remember-
gone, but I appreciate it. It's been a pandemic marriage saver, that garage.
Well, I'll tell you, I just remember being very impressed with Mr. Gregory's directness and the way he presented himself. And I think that he's the type of person that does what he says he's going to do. And I'm sure that Mrs. Gregory is a good teammate in that effort. I do like the use of the walkout basement. I think as I look at that site and I see the way the grades and contours are, and I see where the location of the septic, the Presby is, juxtaposition of the existing building and where the proposed home site is, I think that that's a nice marriage of three locations that are clustered up front with each other. And I think utilizing the walkout basement is the best thing for the area. I think if you moved it in some of those other flat areas, I don't think you would have the same effect. And I think the description would probably be more than what you're looking at where they propose it. So in the matter of case number 2006-VAR-37, a design standards variance for chapter 804 in the buildable area, 490 East Fawn Ridge Trail. I move that we grant the variance based on practical difficulties and staff's report, findings of fact, subject to the conditions in the and any MS4 or Highway Department recommendations are. And I would add the following condition: that prior to any earth disturbing activity and in conjunction with the submittal of the improvement location permit or building permit, that the petitioner submit an erosion control plan that is reviewed and approved by the MS4 operator, Monroe County. And that's all I have.
I second the motion. Yeah.
I'm gonna call roll, Larry.
Yes, I will.
Larry, you're muted.
Who seconded that motion? I'm sorry.
Margaret.
Okay. Okay. The vote is on petition number 2006-VR-37, Gregory buildable area variance from chapter 804. The motion is to approve the variance subject to the conditions set forth in the report and with the condition that a erosion control plan be submitted and approved by the MS4 operator. Is that close enough, Bernie?
I think you hit it right on the head, Larry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mary Beth Kasparchak?
Yes.
Margaret Clemens?
Yes.
Vicki Sorensen?
Yes.
Bernie Garitas?
Yes.
Okay, the variance is approved by a 4-0 vote.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Gregory. Enjoy your dream home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have case number 2006-VAR-8 and 2006-VAR-39. Tammy?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So this is located at 6535 West Ison Road. It's a 40-acre lot in Van Buren Township, Section 27. And this is the location. It does not have direct frontage. And just to the east of the petition site is the Iron Gate subdivision. And this petition site does not have direct frontage on there as either. The zoning is Ag Rural Reserve. And the comprehensive plan has this as rural residential. These are the site conditions. So the 40 acres actually has a house on it already. There's a pre-existing non-conforming business that was determined under a use form that was submitted that allows for a general contractor to be up there in the northeast corner of the lot. This petitioner was here almost a year ago to ask for a side yard setback in the same corner for a 12,000 square foot storage structure. And during staff site visit, that was when we discovered that there was a second home on the lot, and that's why the petitioners are here today. I do want to point out that that red line that reaches up to West Ison Road, that is the, that's the 15-foot access easement that's approximately like 12,000 feet long. Oh, sorry, 1,200 linear feet. All right, next. And then this is kind of just honing in to the site. That turquoise box is to the right there. That's showing the 12,000 square foot structure that is actually in construction currently, and it's 10 feet off of the side yard setback. The last petition is what determined the setbacks for this lot. And so the eastern property line is a side yard, does not have direct frontage to Iron Gate Trail. And then the West Ison Road is considered the front. And in the Ag Rural Reserve zoning, it states that setbacks are from right-of-way, or if there is no direct frontage, then it's 50 feet. So now looking at the red rectangle that's there, that's the home that was built without permits, and it is 40 feet from that northern property line and does not meet the front setback in this case. While we're here, the septic system is on the right-hand side of that drive that leads to it. They did actually underground their utilities as well. You'll see that in one of the other photos in a moment. And then this is the site conditions with regards to slope. There are lots of areas here that are not hindered by slopes greater than 15%. So these are some of the staff photos. Far left is their driveway entrance that leads down that 15-foot easement. The bottom is showing the 12,000 square foot storage structure that's under construction now. Finally, they were able to obtain a permit because they met all of the conditions of the previous petition. And then the upper right is the 1,056 square foot home that was discovered during a staff visit for that previous variance. All right, next. And then this is on the right hand, okay, the upper picture, the right hand side is basically the northern property line. And then this is just demonstrating that 40-foot setback when it is required to be 50 foot. And then the lower picture is showing just kind of where like the utilities come into the site and the septic system is. And again, the upper picture, utilities, septic area, and then an aerial view of the site. You can see in that northeast corner, all the activity for the pre-existing non-conforming business and agricultural use that they do have going on here at the site, and also the existing home that's kind of in the center of the lot as well. And then this is a final aerial view kind of depicting where this home is located with regards to the other structures on the property. And I will say that many of those, I think 3 of those other structures previously did not have permits. It was discovered during the review for that 12,000 square foot structure that they had 3 outstanding structures that did not have permits. So they retroactively obtained those. They did not do it for this house for whatever reason. And it was just kind of a fluke that staff discovered it during the staff visit. This is the petitioner's letter that hopefully you had a chance to read through. And then the site plan that they submitted for this petition is on the left, and the yellow square depicts the 1,056 square foot home. And I want to say that part of this petition is asking for that allowance that, you know, this be kind of defined as an accessory dwelling unit. And one of the conditions for a detached accessory dwelling unit is that it's no larger than 1,000 square feet of living space. And in this case, it's 1,056, so it doesn't quite meet that definition. They're asking for a variance for that extra 56 square feet, and also that 40-foot, you know, I guess it's a 10-foot encroachment into the front setback as defined under Chapter 804. And then on the right, I just included also the original site plan, just kind of more depicting the previous, you know, where that other structure was going. And it's also more to scale, and you can see how the Iron Gate Trail and an unbuilt road stubs kind of into the property here. So the recommended motion, staff recommends denial of the front yard setback requirement to Chapter 804 based on the findings of fact, specifically finding C. And this is basically, there's other parts of this property where this house could be relocated to that would meet all of the design standard criteria. And then staff recommends denial of condition number 55, which is the maximum area to Chapter 802 based on the findings of fact, using finding C because, you know, this is a self-created problem. They did not get this, they did not come through the permitting system properly for this structure. It didn't even have a septic permit when we started looking into it. So they even had to retroactively go back and get a septic permit. And there's a possibility that they could subdivide this property and that would allow it to have a home on the site of whatever size. So they wouldn't be limited to the 1,000 square foot requirement for a detached accessory dwelling unit. And it could just be a standalone lot for this home. Any questions?
I have a question. So if they got all these permits, how many permits are we asking for?
Right now, they are asking for one permit to have a DADU, a detached accessory dwelling unit on the property. And if both of these variances are approved, they would get to keep the home in its current location.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the staff? Okay.
Pardon me, just a quick question, Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
The red roof, and the red roof is the one that has the condition 55. Am I correct?
Yes, that's what they're asking to be classified as a detached accessory dwelling unit. But it does not, it meets all the criteria other than, you know, the front setback, and it's just over 1,000 square feet. It's 1,056 square feet.
And if they, okay, let me look at this here. And where is the front setback line defined as?
The northern property line, because this property does not have direct frontage, and we're calling West Ison Road its access point. And when a lot under Chapter 804 in this zone does not have direct access to a road, like direct frontage, then it has to be 50 feet from the property line.
Right.
I think I discussed that on the second page of my report.
I have a
Page
question.
110. Mm-hmm.
You said that they could subdivide off a piece of that property and it wouldn't have any variance issues. Is that right?
It would still have possibly the front setback issue. Although if they utilize the stub from Iron Gate to access the property in a sliding scale subdivision, because there is 25-foot width there, it's possible that might rearrange the configuration and how we decide that being a front versus a side yard setback. And it would also then put that house on its own separate lot and then not be beholden to that size limitation.
Okay. Any more questions for staff?
Yeah, I've got another question, and my memory is kicking in from before and then now, which is okay. How far on the east side of this property along Iron Gate, what is the gap between the right of way and the property line? Do we know that?
So Jackie, if you could go down to the slide with my site plan, I think that puts it into perspective. And that I don't believe is in the packet. It's only on the slide in this petition. I'm sorry, Bernie, I didn't think to put it in there, but
okay. No, fine. I'm just a ref. That's on page 114, correct?
114, yeah, that's a good depiction of it.
Okay.
So there
That
is
property-
that light blue 50-foot strip, which is known as lot 20. It's actually 50 feet, and it was to buffer the actual subdivision, and it provides a drainage easement as well for the 50-foot right-of-way of the Iron Gate Trail.
Mhm.
And there is a stub to the property in this petition, and it was never, the road was never built. It wasn't required under the petition. I can't tell you the entire backstory of this, but it does actually have a drainage like a drainage culvert underneath that spot right there in case there is a future road connection. But the petitioner's property actually has like that 25-foot, or it's actually 26.41 kind of stub into the petitioner's property. And then the other 24 feet is to the neighboring property to the north. But because that was never built out, it's not considered frontage at this point in time, but could be.
And you're talking about, oops, keep going, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it could be considered frontage should they subdivide, utilize that as an access.
Right, so that, and you're talking about the stub, that white line that looks like a stub in the middle of the property to the west of this one, correct?
Looking at page 114.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the light blue is lot 20, and just where that ends is where that right-of-way stub is. That is an unnamed road that kind of stubs into the petitioner's property and to the property to the north.
And who does the Iron Gate subdivision own the gap?
Yes.
Between the right-of-way and the property line? Okay.
Yeah, and I'll let the petitioner maybe speak more to how they were involved with that subdivision and that agreement of the stub.
Yeah, that might be interesting to know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple issues here. One is the construction without the proper permits and getting those current. I mean, you know, the permits prevent these things from happening most times.
Right. Had they just applied for the permit in the beginning, even when we were going down the road of the other variances, and maybe they had been forthright in what else was on the property, not just what we happened to find, we could have maybe set them straight with the 40-foot, and they could have maybe preemptively come in for that, you know, DADU variance for the size limitation.
Right. So again, at the northeast corner, and sorry everybody for going into this, but I'm just trying to look at this as a big picture thing.
Sure.
So going in right there where the curve starts on South Iron Gate Trail, and now I'm on page 114 again. Up at the northeast corner, it appears that there's that right-of-way access you're referring to.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
But
and if you were able to see
there-
our staff slide, I've got a nice depiction of it that Kevin Potter put together. That's to scale.
Right. Well, okay, I can see it, but there's no easement to get from that the red and blue lines that go north and south to the property. Is that correct?
That hasn't been investigated yet.
Because it looks like if this drawing, if that's platted right away, my question would be, they've got potentially, do you know if they've got an easement coming on that driveway coming from the north?
Yes,
I'm assuming they do because of you.
They do, but it's only 15 feet, and our subdivision control ordinance requires 25 for a sliding scale and 50 for a minor.
Okay, I guess I'm ready to hear that. I'm okay. I'm going to have some more questions. I bet I'll hold off for now.
Sure.
Okay, is the petitioner here?
This is Mike Carmen for the petitioner, and Richard and Teresa Groomer are both with me. I may end up sharing the computer monitor, so for Richard, if he needs to speak. RTG is the property owner, and that's Richard and Teresa Groomer. And this is their property. This is their residence out there. They've been there for a very long time and actually own other land in the area and have for decades. This particular site is the home, the large building that's been talked about several times now, the previous room. I mean, Richard Farms, they've got livestock on the property. He also has a separate business. As we all know, it's almost nobody makes their livelihood by farming only these days, whether it's crops or livestock. So he has a business, and so he built that large building to both hold his equipment and for his business, as well as then to his farm implements and equipment. Let me address Bernie's question for a moment and clarify that stub to the right. When that subdivision was approved there to the east of this property, the Plan Commission required the stub road to be put in. It's not been developed. I mean, there's no stone or anything down on it. It's the bed's there. It's been cut in, but it's not actually been improved and opened up. Mr. and Mrs. Groomer did not request that stub connection. The Plan Commission wanted that. My understanding, the Plan Commission wanted that connection, but in one sense, they'd rather not have it there because it would encourage circular traffic coming in the Iron Gate Trail, circling around and going back out what is a fairly an easement. There is an easement that runs north and south to get out to Ison Road from the corner of this property, but it is not wide as such, and so they did not want to encourage more use of that. They're fairly isolated by design, by intention, on an easement that gets to their property, and they certainly like to keep the traffic down that way. But back to the petition. So that stub road is there. It is public. It's on the plat, and it's just not actually been improved and opened up as a road. And at this point, not asking anybody to do that. As to this structure, 2 variances are being requested. I want to clarify why and what they are. There had been a mobile home on this site for a long time. That home was no longer in use, and they've got their stick-built residence out there, and the home was not in good condition. So it was eventually removed, and Richard built this house actually intended for their son. So he removed a residential structure and built a new one, and thought that was what he was allowed to do. Did not consider whether what permits might be required to replace one residential structure with another. The problem he has from a legal standpoint is the mobile home had been out of use and discontinued use enough, so there was essentially a grandfather issue of a second residential structure on the lot that had long expired. There's no argument about that. So now they're confronted with a single lot with 2 residential structures on it, even if this gets approved. The issue of the detached additional dwelling comes up because that is an allowed second residential structure on a single lot. And so they could do that. They'd have to apply for that, but that has the size limitation, 1,000 square feet. That limitation would not apply if this were a permitted second residential lot, not a dadu. So that is that detached additional dwelling that kicks in the additional criteria of a limit to 1,000 square feet. They'd rather not subdivide their lot and have to do that. Now it's a 40-acre tract and like to keep it intact as it is. But I'm sorry. Yeah, well, and their son lives with them and would move into that structure if we finally can get it permitted. But that's the reason that, I want to give the irony of all this is, as they already talked about, 1,056 square feet, 44 by 24 exterior dimensions. The standard is 1,000 square feet. That's 0.056% too large. It's 56 feet. If you would ask somebody if this, how big the structure, if you know the facts right now, and somebody just say, well, how big is that structure? I'm going to suggest you would not say it's 1,056 feet. You'd say it's 1,000 square feet. If this were 56 feet smaller, or less than 1,000, if there's 944 square feet, and somebody asks what size it is, you're going to say it's 1,000 square feet because that's the concept. That's what we deal in. If you do the math on a 44-foot dimension, the other dimension has to be 23.25 feet. If you do 43 feet, nobody thinks those terms. Look at our building material sizes. We're talking lengths at 8 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, 16 feet. we talk about even whole numbers on everything. To build a structure 24 by 44 is such a foregone conclusion as opposed to 23.25 feet by 44, which is what this would have had to be. It's a minor de minimis issue, and there's nothing magic about square feet. I understand when the ordinance was adopted that allowed the attached space for dwelling, we had to have a standard, had to be something. But there's nothing magic about it being 1,000 square feet as opposed to 1,050 or 1,070 or 1,100. And there is no even number dimension, 22 by 44 or anything that's going to get you 1,000 square feet. And nobody thinks of and builds in 23.2 foot lengths. The staff report suffers again from making a finding of fact or recommending one that it talks about hardship. So I'm not going to belabor that point again. We just did that in the last petition. That this is not a hardship case. That's not the standard. It is practical difficulties as the final conclusion draws to. You need to just disregard any reference to hardships. To the extent it's self-created, whether it's a practical difficulty or hardship is being self-created, I would say almost every petition you face at every monthly meeting has some element of being self-created. It's rare that they're not, and this one certainly is. The other variance is the side yard or front yard setback. This structure, just like the mobile home that was there, which was not, by the way, is not on the same location. This is moved a little bit from where the mobile home had been located. But that home and now this structure, as it exists, orients to the east. The front door faces the east. If you'd gone out there, if you didn't know anything else, look at this, you would have looked at this, you'd say, the line we're talking about is the side yard. You come off the east side, the driveway comes to the east, the house opens to the east. It's from every practical measurement, the east line would be the front line. I understand the staff's rationale that it's going to be the north line, but I'm telling you, you would not have believed that. And I don't care how many years I do this, I learn something new. And if I ever think I'm just finally really learning everything in this ordinance, now you're going to change it on me. It's going to make me retire. But so let's go back to this. So we've got the side yard. I know I'm going to do a share screen again, and I realize Bernie and Margaret, a comparable photograph will be page 113 of your packet. At least it's there. It's just small and it's hard to see that. But if this works there.
Just to be clear, I've been able to log into Zoom, so I am seeing what the petitioner is exhibiting.
So what this photograph is showing, this is the property again. I drew in lot lines for the properties to the north. The white line across the top of this photograph is Ison Road. And you can see, and I drew a red rectangle around this structure and the parking area. You can see it there. So it's just out to the property line there. But as the crow flies, we're 1,110 feet scale, using GIS to scale it, not a surveyor, to the nearest structure, 1,280 to the one furthest to the west. There's nothing on the one to the lot to the east. And if you look at the slopes on that, it's gonna take something really creative and difficult to be able to ever get a structure on that lot. What's not so visible on this page, I'm gonna go to the next one. These are some contour lines. There's a photograph at page 119 in your packet or a depiction that has the contour lines on it. I think those are 2-foot lines. This one is not. These are on 20-foot lines. But even at that, you can see those lots to the north are bisected with the ravine. You can see we're going from 850 square sea elevation down to 820 and lower, and it just so there is never going to be anything built in the southern half of those lots that's ever going to be close to this thing. And we have existing structures. If something would ever be built along the one to the east that's vacant at this time, the inclination is going to be built out close to Ison Road, not to the south end, anywhere close to this property. So we're at 40 feet instead of 50. The petitioner statement that's in your packet, Richard talked about, he's had some experience building and he was used to side yard setbacks. And he thought at 40 feet, he was well in the safety margin compared to the 15 and occasionally 5 feet or 25 feet on different projects and different ones, but never dreaming of setting back 40 feet from what we thought was going to be a side yard was ever going to be a problem. But it's there and it's not movable. That can't be done. So the issue, this structure was in existence at the time of the prior variance, when the staff started, as you talked about discovering this structure that was already in place. So when the determination would be, and through that other variance process, that we're looking at Ison Road being the frontage and that north line being the front setback, we're already built, we're already in place, and there's nothing we can do about it at that point. We built it believing and understanding that was going to be a side yard standard, and never dreaming that it was going to end up being 50 feet. The ordinance is there, it says that. If you know it enough and understand it enough, people come in to planning every time they drive a nail, and then maybe these things don't happen, but they do happen, and they're going to continue to happen. And on appropriate cases, I would hope that variances would be allowed to help clean up the problems that are in fact self-created. I acknowledge that. So we're dealing with two variances: request for a variance on this required front yard setback, since that line is going to be deemed the front yard, not a side yard. We're set at 40 feet, not the required 50 feet. Would ask for approval of the variance for that setback. It does no harm. It absolutely is a non-existent practical issue. It is a legal problem at the moment because of that being defined as the front yard and have to set back 50 feet. The second variance is only because of the second structure, to be able to maintain it as a detached additional dwelling so their son can live in it and keep it as a single intact lot and not have to divide the lot up already. It can only be done as a detached additional dwelling, and that has that 1,000-foot limitation. So we're applying for a variance now on that so that we can apply for the DADU and otherwise meet all the standards on that. And what the septic field's already in place, everything's there. It's just the size issue, and 56 square feet on a 1,000-foot structure is just the minimus. I would ask that your support on approving both variances. And I said, Richard is here to answer questions, or
Yes, sir.
so we'll get rid of the share screen.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Carmen or the petitioners? I think
I got one,
yes.
Mary Beth. This is Bernie. What is the side yard setback for agro reserve? Can somebody answer that?
Sure. It's 15 feet for residential structures and 50 feet for non-residential structures.
So it'd be 15 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Carmen or staff? Or the petitioner? Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak against this petition? None, we would be ready for a motion.
Okay, I can do this. And I just want to make a comment that the basis of my thought process here is I keep going back to the northeast corner of the property and how that road accesses all the way up to West Ison. And at some point, it's highly likely that if this 40 acres would ever turn into something other than it is with more density, that the northeast corner would become its access, and that would become a side yard. So I think that would, because when I saw this, I struggled with the fact that we were looking at the front yard coming to the north, which is why I asked Tammy that question, and she answered it very well. So, and as far as the size of the building, 1,000 feet's 1,000 feet. Nominal lumber can be found that can construct 1,000 square foot building. But I do see this as de minimis, and I don't know what the resolution is other than just tearing part of it out. And I don't know that that's a practical solution either. So I'm going to just put these I'm going to put my motions together because they're related to the same structure. So in case number 2006-VAR-38 and 2006-VAR-39, the request is a design standard variance, Chapter 804, front yard setback, and design standards variance for Chapter 802 for condition number 55 of the maximum area at 6535 West Ison Road. Subject to the staff report, findings, recommendations by the highway engineer, MS4 operator. I move approval based on practical difficulties of both of those variance requests.
I second the motion.
Larry, please call the roll.
Okay, I will try. The motion is to approve variances for under petition 2006-VAR-38, 2006-VAR-39, subject to the conditions set forth in the report by the Highway Department and the Stormwater Department. With the change in the findings from the recommended findings to find practical difficulties under finding C for both variances. A vote in favor is to vote to approve both variances based upon the amended findings. Mary Beth Smartcheck,
Yes.
Vicky Sorensen,
Yes.
Barbara Clemens,
Yes.
Rudy Garitas.
Yep.
The variances are approved by a 4-0 vote.
Hey, thank you so much. And you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Okay, the final case for the evening is case number 2007-VAR-40 and 41 and 42. And this is, hey, who's handling this one?
Rebecca, sorry, you're on mute, Rebecca.
Okay, Rebecca.
Here I am. Sorry about that. So yeah, before you tonight is a petition that has sort of 3 prongs to it. It's a request for a minimum lot area from Chapter 804, as well as minimum lot width. So those are variances 1 and 2, and then the third piece is from the buildable area related to slopes 15% or greater. So this property is located at 6233 West DLAP Road in Section 3 of Richland Township. And it contains about 0.98 acres. So looking at the variances in detail, in this zone, what is needed for minimum lot area is 2.5 acres. Actually, that says proposed. It should be actual. So sorry about that on the slide there. But anyway, the actual acreage is 0.98 for this parcel. Minimum lot width needed is 200 feet, and the actual width is 125. So moving on to the slope component, they're asking for a variance from the buildable area requirement, specifically from 804, or sorry, specifically for slopes 15%. And the purpose of these requests is because the petitioners would like to renovate an existing residential accessory unit that's on the lot. They'd like to renovate the interior and then add a small addition to the side. Next slide, Jackie. So here are some maps. You can see the location here on the upper left, and bottom right is showing current zoning, which again is Ag RR. Next slide, Jackie. The comprehensive plan shows this as rural residential. And then looking at the site condition map, it's a relatively not complicated parcel. There are no karst features. It's not in FEMA floodplain. And there are very few trees on the lot. It's primarily grass. Next slide, Jackie. Here's a slope map. So you can see on the west and south side of the parcel, there's some slope that is shown. Otherwise, it's fairly flat. So moving on to some site photos, I mentioned that there is an existing residential accessory unit on the lot. Upper left corner is a picture of that. It's currently a garage. And then moving down to the bottom right corner is just another shot of the existing structure, just standing from the roadway. And then the two remaining pictures, sorry, Jackie, flashback one more, are just illustrating DeLapp Road looking east and west. Next slide. So again, just wanted to sort of give you a picture of what the lay of the land looks like with these photographs. So I want to talk about the picture on the bottom left. This is standing in the petitioner's driveway, looking west at their neighbor. And then the bottom right photo is the back side or south side of the existing structure. And I'll talk in a minute where the proposed addition is planned. Next slide, Jackie. So here we are on the west side of the unit. This is where the petitioners would like to build their addition. So I'm looking straight at, in the left picture, I'm looking straight at the west wall of the unit. And then in the right picture, I'm photographing from the south of it. I'm just trying to capture the bit of slope that's there. Next slide. Again, same illustrations here. Just this is the side of the unit where they would like to do their 400 square foot addition. Next slide, Jackie. More pictures. Again. Okay, so you can go to the last slide, Jackie. Next slide. So this is the letter to Board of Zoning Appeals that the petitioner submitted. While it wasn't stated in here, we've had lots of conversations, and Mr. Sheets noted that at this time they aren't planning to do any kind of additional garage that would afford storage. So their goal in utilizing the location of the west side of the unit was to take advantage of some of the slope there to build in storage. Next slide. Here we have the site plan that the petitioner submitted. So looking at the west side of the house, you can see that there's proposed 26 by 16 foot addition. And then in the front, they're planning a 26 foot by 60 foot covered porch. Septic is located to the south and east on the lot. Next slide. So staff recommends approving or approval of the design standards variance for the minimum lot size based on findings of fact. We also recommend approval of the design standards variance for the minimum lot width, again, based on findings of fact. Regarding slope, staff recommends denial of the request for variance to buildable area based on findings of fact, primarily finding C. And I'd like to just cover finding C real quick, Jackie, so if you can advance one slide, please. So this has been discussed at length tonight, but what C points out here is that if there is another or other location on the property that wouldn't impact slope, that would be the ideal place to locate any addition or new structure. And so given that there is some opportunity to build on the east side of the existing residential structure, we had to, honor that and offer the recommendation of denial. Are there any questions?
Anyone have any questions for staff?
I do. On the one slide where we're showing the neighbor next door, their house, it looked like they may have been on a slope. Do you know anything about that? Was that approved?
Which the neighbor?
They had a walkout. It looked like a walkout base.
Yeah, right here at the bottom left.
So were they on?
They're on a bit of slope as well. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so apparently that was approved somewhere along the way.
Evidently.
The 15% slope, Vicky, was 2015.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it was built prior to that. Okay. Any more questions for staff?
Bernie's got one.
Rebecca, would you put the plan that shows the dimensions
Sure.
up again, please?
I think it's the second to last slide, Jackie, or near the end.
What is that distance that they illustrate on the east side? That dimension or that?
34 feet is indicated.
Okay. And then what is it on the west side with the addition?
33.
Okay, so it's 34 on the east side without the addition. So that would be 14 once the addition was built, or probably 13 and a half. And then on this side, basically it matches what's on the east side. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for staff? Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Is the plaintiff here?
Yes.
I'm sorry, is the petitioner here?
Not the plaintiff, but the petitioner's here. Yeah.
Petitioner, yes. My apologies. All right. Okay. You wish to speak?
Yes. My name is Justin Sheets, and I am the owner of the property.
Justin, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right, you can proceed, sir.
A couple reasonings why we are wanting to build, or why we need to build the addition on the west side of the property. The first being, Rebecca kind of touched on it. Our plan is to use the area under the addition for a storage. We are a family of four without the means to build a garage or any other storage structures at this time. And that's going to be crucial for us to be able to basically fit everything in the house. Another reasoning is in the future, we would like to build a detached garage, and that's not going to be possible on the west side of the property. I know we have a little bit more room to work with on the east side. And then another couple other things As far as drainage and everything, we're planning on putting in a gutter system to kind of divert the water away from the sloped area. Like I said, it's a 400 square foot part of the house out of 1,700 square feet. I've never witnessed any kind of erosion or standing water as far as the area that is in question. But the slope will remain unchanged. We're just trying to put in that, really want to use that lower section for extra storage.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sheets? Bernie?
Mr. Sheets, so on your, you say you're looking maybe in the future to adding an attached garage?
Sorry, a detached garage.
Detached, okay. I just
Yes.
didn't hear it clearly. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Sheets? Okay, thank you, Mr. Sheets. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this petition? Seeing none, we ready for a motion?
Can I just note something before the motion?
Yes.
I see that while they didn't choose to speak, it does look like there are some of Mr. Sheets' neighbors on the line. And
hi, I'm sorry. I am Marcia, and I am the 6237 West DeLapp to the left of the house with the basement that was built before.
Okay, excuse me. Can I get you to state your name, please?
Marcella Landreth.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
I live at 6237 West DeLapp Road in the house that was built with a walkout basement on the slope to the left of the proposed in the picture. And I would like to say there have been no erosion, flooding issues whatsoever with the land at all. And I have no problem with them building on that side.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of the petition? Okay. Anyone else here that would like to speak against the petition? I think we're ready for a motion now.
I can do it. And I do think the placement of the addition is, of course, it's off the gable end, so that makes it practical with the construction of the home instead of on the north side. And I think that this allows for the growth of the home in a very predictable manner in the future. And I think that this is a great example of how maintained yards can hold slope, and maybe even a petition that we would look at as one suitable for a hearing officer if that part of an ordinance ever comes to fruition. So after all that, I would like to make a motion to approve case number 2007-VAR-40 and 2007-VAR-41 and 2007-VAR-42 Design Standards Variance Chapter 804 for lot area acres, Design Standards Variance for Chapter 804 minimum lot width, Design Standards Variance for Chapter 804 buildable area variance for the 15% slope restriction at 6233 West DeLapp Road. Based on staff's findings, it's found in the staff report, I do believe practical difficulties have been met. I would add one condition, that the petitioner submit with their building permit a diagram illustrating erosion control measures that'll need to be put in place to be reviewed by the MS4 operator. I don't propose that this needs to be an engineered drawing, just something to illustrate for the builder, the homeowner, and the county that they all are on the same page as to what has to happen to make sure that there's no erosion that goes over to the west onto the neighboring property. And that's all I have.
I second.
I'm gonna call roll, Larry.
Okay. The motion is to approve variances 2007-VR40, 2007-VR41, 2007-VR42, the sheets minimum lot size variance, the sheets minimum lot width variance, and the sheets buildable area variance, 15% slope restriction, all from Chapter 804. A vote to approve is a vote to approve all variances, subject to any conditions set forth in the reports, and with the condition that erosion control be added to the site plan and submitted to the stormwater department, showing appropriate erosion control measures for the benefit of the builder, along with the improvement location permit. Is that close, Bernie?
Perfect, Larry. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Again, a vote in favor is a vote to approve all variances with the amended findings for variance 2007-VR42 and with the condition added in the motion. Okay. I will now call the roll. Margaret Clemens,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Mary Beth Kasmarchuk,
Yes.
Vicki Sorensen.
Yes.
All three variances are approved by a 4-0 vote.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Sheets. You have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
And are there any reports?
The only thing, I just wanted to take the opportunity to commend staff just for the quality of the presentations tonight on a long agenda. I mean, I think you do a really good job of presenting a lot of information in a very concise manner, and also working with petitioners. I just want to do this publicly. I try to do it privately, but I think they deserve a little public acknowledgement.
Enjoyed seeing Ann's dog this evening.
That's all I have.
Okay.
No report from legal.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, Larry, can I make a comment? Because, you know,
Sure.
that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing this evening, right? Just want to echo your sentiment that staff is doing a great job, and their evaluation of the ordinance is exactly what they need to do. And I commend all of them, and the reports were done. Every one of the reports was done, in my estimation, as perfectly as they can be done, frankly. And I call out Ann there, especially whenever I just liked her analysis of the one on Lake Lemon, where she looked at it kind of from another perspective. So I just want to echo what you're saying. And when we approve variances or we do something that may not be quite in line with what staff recommends, it's not a critique on their evaluation. It's just what we see in the petition that points us in a different direction. So thank you very much for your good work.
I agree.
All right. Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, I'll second that. If you want to say or say aye.
Aye.
All right. It's nice seeing you all, and I must say I'll miss the kitties and doggies if we ever get back into the courthouse.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. you.